This week's parsha is Parshat Behar, where we speak about the mitzvahs of Shemitah and Yovel. We'll be focusing in on Yovel, and we'll be sharing an idea from Rav Bernstein. I heard this idea about 3 years ago with Machon Yaakov, and here's what he has to say. We're focusing in on the third Aliyah. It's chapter 25, verse 19, but we'll start with verse 20. So what's unusual about this episode is that we're talking about one of the mitzvahs of the Torah, and it's very unusual that in such a context the Torah will engage in like a shakla v'tarya, right? A give and take, this conversation. Now what happens? It says, if you will say, what will we eat in the 7th year? Behold, we will not sow and not gather in our crops. And then God responds, I will ordain my blessing for you in the 6th year, and it will yield a crop sufficient for the 3-year period. It seems like God's saying like, this is a great question that you've asked. And now that you've asked it, here's the answer. Things are going to work out great. Glad you asked. It'll be fine. But what makes this a little bit difficult and hard to understand is that right before this conversation takes place, right, this rhetorical conversation, we have in verse 19, the land will give its fruit, and you'll eat your fill. You will dwell securely upon it. Excuse me. Right? That we just said, everything will be fine. You'll eat your fill. And only that does it say, right? If you will say, what will we eat in the 7th year? That is a bit unusual. Why do we have that? Rav Bernstein quotes Rabbi Elimelech of Lazinsk in his Sefer Noam Elimelech. It's a Hasidic work. He was an early Hasidic rabbi, a massive Talmid Chacham, and we'll share his idea here. He says as follows. What's happening here is a major yesod, because every mitzvah has a certain koach, right? There's a spiritual cause and a physical effect, right? There's a cause and effect. So how does that work out here? So with Shemitah, if you physically don't work the land, then you'll have this spiritual effect of having an amazing bracha. Now, you'd think that that's only if you do it in the most ideal way, right? You don't question it. And here it is, that we are questioning it, and even so, things work out, right? That's what we just read. But what's special here is that you can damage a spiritual reality, right? A spiritual blessing by questioning things, by saying things that can actually change the outlook, that can change the flow of the bracha towards you. And we've seen this with Sarah Imenu, actually. It's a very famous dvar Torah, but it's worthwhile repeating if we've never spoken it out. If we look back into Chumash Bereshit in Parshat Vayera, right, chapter 18, we have the episode where the three malachim come to visit Avraham right after he circumcises himself, and they come to do many things, but one of them is to report that Avraham will have a son the next year. So here's what it says. Verse 10. I'm just going to read it in English and then in Hebrew. And he said, one of the malachim, I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Now Avram and Sarah were old, well on in years. The manner of women had ceased to be with Sarah. All this is fine. And Sarah laughed at herself, saying, after I have withered, shall I again have delicate skin? And my husband is old. And in saying this, by Sarah saying this, she actually canceled out the fact that she was going to become pregnant. She was mevatel the bracha that she just received from the malach. Now you could say, well, how do you know that, Ophir? What are you basing that on? Let's read further. Okay, so verse 13. Then Hashem said to Avram, why is it that Sarah laughed, saying, shall I in truth bear a child, though I have aged? Now look at what happens. Is anything beyond Hashem? At the appointed time, I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. God gives the bracha again to make sure that Sarah will have a son. Now, why does Hashem need to repeat this? So you could say it's rhetorically, it's just reaffirming. The answer is no, he's not just reaffirming. Sarah, by questioning the fact that she was going to get this bracha, was actually mevatel the bracha. She canceled out the bracha, and therefore God had to repeat it to reinstate the bracha. That's amazing. And even if we look at the words, what does it say? Again, we're in verse 10. Shov ashuv elecha ka'et chaya v'hinei v'in l'Sarah ishtecha. That's what it says. In verse 14 it says, Ashuv elecha ka'et chaya u'Sarah vein. Almost exactly the same words. Because God again had to reaffirm this bracha after Sarah was mevatel it. So too here. What happened? So this is clarified by the Seforno, just to make sure that if you ask for something, God will give you the bracha, but it'll be in some way limited. It'll be damaged in a way. Now, what does that mean? So the Seforno elaborates, as you elaborated by Rabbi Yehuda Kopperman, and Rav Bernstein heard this from his father, Rabbi Bernstein Sr. Rabbi Bernstein Sr. and Rabbi Kopperman were actually first cousins. So there is yichus here. Okay. So when it comes to bitachon, says the Seforno, there's a certain midah keneged midah. You get what you asked for, and you shouldn't have asked to begin with. And if you asked, then your produce will increase. But there are two different ways it can increase. The quality can increase, or the quantity can increase. Now, if we take a step back and we think about this, then obviously we would prefer that the quality should increase. Why is that? Because that's what the original bracha was. Before we get to that, why would you prefer the quality to increase? If I were to ask you, you can either get 1 acre of land, right? And if you sow the land and you tend to it properly, it will yield as much as 10 acres of land. What would you prefer? Having 1 acre of land, or having to work 10 acres of land? So clearly, anyone in the right mind would prefer to work only 1 acre of land. That's 10% of the work for the same result, because this produces such high quality stuff that it's as if you'd have a normal piece of land that is 10 acres, all being produced in 1 acre. That, we're seeing, is what's happening in this parsha. Then, so again, we're looking at chapter 25, verse 19. Right? And you'll eat your fill. The same amount, the same quality, the same quantity of produce will sate you because it's a higher quality of product. What happens after we question, what will we eat in the 7th year? Now it says, right? I will ordain my blessing for you in the 6th year, and will yield a crop sufficient for the 3-year period. Now, God is not promising that the 1-year produce will be enough for 3 years. Rather, he's saying that it's going to produce the same amount for 3 years. That is to say, the quantity will increase. And we don't want that. The fact that we questioned now is going to make us work harder, right? Because we now have to gather in 2 to 3 times the amount of produce. And moreover, we need to find the storage space for it. So where are we going to keep all of this? So we see that questioning a bracha limits the bracha. We might get ultimately enough to eat our fill, but we're going to have to do increased amounts of work, and we're going to have increased inconvenience because we question the bracha. That is one of the lessons we learned from Shemitah from this week's parsha. We'll see you next week. Shabbat Shalom.